Hello, welcome back, all you people who just can't get enough Justice League, like myself. My name's James Enstall. I'm the host of Geek to Me Radio and co-host of this particular podcast, Justice League Revisited. Now, this is a very special episode because I'm on my own. I am hosting this solo. It's an unusual situation to be in. Normally, Susan Eisenberg is right there on the other side of the Zoom screen, helping me co-host as we grill our guests about what they thought of these individual episodes. This is a little bit different, though, because I'm on my own, and the guest is actually Susan Eisenberg, the voice of Wonder Woman from the episode we're discussing today, Maid of Honor. Susan Eisenberg, welcome to Justice League Revisited.
That was adorable. Okay, look at my smile. That was so cute. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's delightful to be here. And as a guest, I'm excited. I was watching the episode, revisiting the episode last night, and I took some notes, but I didn't have to take like copious notes like I usually do because I knew I wasn't going to have to ask questions. So that's on you, kid.
That's right. That's right. It's a whole different ball game right now. So now Susan's the one who's sitting back with a martini, much like usually Dan Reba or George Newbern are, and hanging out in the green room. But this will be fun because you and I talked about this and looked at the episode. We did try, by the way, to get Dory Barton, who voiced the princess in this one, and we just couldn't get a hold of her. It's very hard to contact some people. But as we thought about this, I was like, you know what? It'd be great. This is, for all intents and purposes, the first Wonder Woman-centric episode. Really, especially the first part of this two-parter, focuses heavily on you. So I can't remember if it was your idea or my idea, but we should just have you as the guest. I thought that was really good. Whoever idea it was good.
Brilliant. And, it's like, it's not easy getting guests. I mean, we have access to the actors, obviously, and we have access to some of the production team, but a lot of people are hard to find, and we have tried. We really wanted to get Dory. I am a huge fan of hers. I loved her performance in this episode. It would have meant the world to me. I reached out, but I just couldn't find her. So if anyone out there knows Dory, please tell her we tried to get her. But this is Wonder Woman. This is Diana's episode, which was very sweet. And I love this episode. I feel like when she was in Paradise Island, when she was in Themyscira, with the sisters, that was also, her episode as well. But this is very much hers. And may I say hers and Batman's. I mean, there's a lot of, hubba in this episode.
A lot of Wonder Bat chemistry. And that's one of the things, as you mentioned, obviously, when you're on Themyscira, when we have that, when you go back and find your mother turned to stone with Lord Hades. But this, it struck me because I'm sitting there looking, I'm like, I don't think I've ever seen Wonder Woman without her tiara. She still had the bracelets, but this is the first time we've seen you in civilian clothes that I can remember so far. So that makes it a much more different episode as well.
Well, and maybe it's like the invisible jet. Maybe she was wearing the tiara, but we just couldn't see it.
Could be. Invisible tiara. Or she left it on the jet, one of the two.
Well, with all those shots of the hair, like, what I loved about this episode too, there's so many gifts that you see where they come from in this episode. Yes. There's so many fighting and the bracelets. Oh my God. I don't think it's like a brilliant way to stop bullets, but obviously it works for her. It wouldn't be my first choice, but who am I to judge? There were so many moments of action for her. So maybe the tiara it was best not being on.
Yeah. She had it like around. She had it around her thigh like a garter, and she has pulled out
or her waist.
Yeah, something.
Or her waist because they're so little. These
tiny
these
little
actresses.
waist. Yes,
tiny. Yeah.
But I thought about that too, as you mentioned. Stopping them with your when you're taking on the whole Kasnian army. You and Batman as you're approaching the wedding, trying to stop the wedding, and you're knocking all these bullets back with bracelets. I'm sitting there thinking, You just had Vox push your head into the ground as you're flying along fairly fast to keep up with a plane, and he's pushing your face into the ground and moving you right along. You get hit with a sonic beam of some kind. Is a bullet really, are you going to be like, hey, you know, just, is that really going to bug Wonder Woman, just taking a bullet to the shoulder or the thigh? Wouldn't that kind of
yeah, whatever, just another day. Yeah. I mean, it actually cracked me up, a lot of those action scenes, because I remember having to do the ADR, you know, like the head in the dirt and being, you know, it's really funny to have to come up with those sounds of, you know, it's like for George with the electrocution,
right? You
know, okay, like your head is being pounded into dirt and you're being pushed. And then, you know, one of my favorite ones is fainting and then coming to, you know, when you're, but yeah, I'm not crazy. I don't know. To me, the bracelets, and I have a pair myself. I don't know. I just couldn't believe how much her ass was getting kicked in this episode, and everybody's. I mean, that's the thing. In every episode, we're the underdogs at one point or another. I find that fascinating, that we have so many moments of weakness and vulnerability in every episode. Mm-hmm. And I kind of love that about the show, because we're superheroes, but we're not without our moments of really being lost or helpless. I'm really shocked sometimes when we're as helpless as we are. Like poor Flash. I mean, that was like a moving scene. And then I was about to say, Phil went and got him. Green Lantern went and saved him. That was so touching when he goes and gets him and brings him into the it wasn't the Watchtower. What was it where he brings him in? The
space platform, or the International Space Station, I think.
Yes, that's right. Yes, it was. Yes. And like, I love those moments, those quiet, sweet, where you get to see their character. So yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was funny. Flash just playing solitaire on the Watchtower.
I know, that was great.
Hanging out.
That was great.
But there were
right before the shit hits the fan.
Yeah, then it all goes down in the second part. That's another thing too, because this was unlike the first season where you had a one-parter and you had to wait a week. Both parts dropped the same day in this one, so it was kind of like part one and part two, but it's still kind of like the episode, you got to see it right there. You didn't have to wait the week, because this episode dropped all at once on October 18th of 2003 for this second season. So I guess Cartoon Network would air one, and then they'd have a 1 hour block of Justice League, but they'd still have that break where it said to be continued, but you didn't have to wait the next week to see the second part.
God, it sounds like, a long, long time ago, kids, when we'd have to wait a whole week to listen to an episode, to watch an episode of television.
Back in 2003, I'd turn my beeper off before I sat down and watched Cartoon Network.
Hey, James, tell your story about how you had to walk to... how you didn't have cable.
We didn't have cable. I grew up poor. I don't know if you know this or not about me, Susan, but we didn't have cable when I was growing up.
So how did you watch cartoon? How did you watch the show?
I would either have to go to a friend's house to watch it, or when the DVDs came out, I would just get the DVDs season by season and binge them. So I remember that's one of the things I do. I'd come home from, whatever I was doing, and I'd put in a seat. I'd, mess around the house, but I would have that DVD going in the background. I'd end up sitting on the coffee table watching. I had an ex-girlfriend used to say, "Why are you sitting on the coffee table? Why don't you sit on the couch?" But that's why it's an ex-girlfriend, because she was very bossy.
Okay.
But no, one of the things I loved about this episode too was that in the very beginning of the first part, when they're first trying to kidnap the princess, you and Bruce both say, "Excuse me," and you go off in your separate directions. You just go right into it. You can see him start to tug at his bow tie, and he turns around like, "Oh, this will be fun." Just picks up a glass of champagne and watches you kick all these bad guys' butts, which I really love that little moment. He pops an hors d'oeuvre in his mouth and just watches you.
And I loved that they keep rescuing each other. I think that was a really important piece to this, because you don't want, it's like the Pretty Woman ending. What happens when he rescues her? she rescues him right back.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important to have that, because you don't want to see Batman having to rescue her. She's a superhero in her own right. And he, you know, she can take care of herself, asked and answered. Like, she doesn't need him in that way. And so I loved that moment. And I just thought that was a great moment to show his, he's a little in awe, and he's just going to sit back, like you said, and watch this play out. And there were just so many moments of the two of them in the Wonder Bat moments. And I how I feel about Wonder Bat. I couldn't get enough of that. And I thought it was handled so well. Because unlike Green Lantern and Hawkgirl, which was a very intimate, deep relationship, this was done beautifully, but on a much more superficial level, if you will. It was more flirtatious. There was such a sweetness to it, of her having his number, him having her number, and it never got intense. Mm-hmm. And I love that. I love that. Maybe it would have. That's one of the missed opportunities I think we have without having seen these two characters, move on from this show, but that's another podcast episode. But yeah, I loved that moment. I loved that where she goes off immediately, takes care of business, and he's just standing there. And boy, hearing Kevin's voice, I mean, I have to say, so sexy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in a million other ways, he's brilliant as Batman. A million ways. But just hearing that when he's like flirting with her, I mean, I remember feeling weak in the knees in the studio. I mean, seriously, it's like what a voice can do, right?
Yeah.
And I just thought that the chemistry between the two characters was really, really special. And boy, did I feel it when I was rewatching the episode. What was your take on Wonder Bat?
No,
I don't know that we've ever talked.
I loved it. And I know I've shared with you the picture before, because I remember when I saw Batman versus Superman, and they had a scene with Ben Affleck and Gal Gadot at Lex Luthor's big soiree, and they're dancing, and Bruce is in his tuxedo. I'm like, and I went and did a side by side. I'm like, wow, if that was Zack Snyder's little nod to Justice League, the cartoon show, well done. Because it was a perfect, like, there's two shots that are almost right. They perfectly match each other, which was, I thought, great. One of the things I really enjoyed about Batman versus Superman. But I think we seeing this relationship kind of slowly build, because obviously Bruce is very guarded. And I don't want to say Diana's naive, but you can see that a little in this episode. She's unsure. She's like clubbing when Princess Audrey mentions that. So I think that may be why, as to your point, it wasn't an intense, smoldering relationship, because there's that little bit of naivete on her part when it comes to relationship stuff. And then there's also Batman being so guarded. So I'm not sure if naivete is the right word. You're Wonder Woman. Maybe you have a better word for it.
No, I think naive is right. I mean, because I think there's a sweetness and an innocence to her. And so I would absolutely say she's naive. And in this area, in relationships with men, and I mean, she grew up without them. So, I thought the moment when they're at the club and Audrey brings her over to like look at the men that she's found for them, and Diana says, like, oh, he's a tall glass of water. I was a little surprised by that. I didn't remember that beat, and I was a little surprised that instead of her being like, what are we supposed to do with them? It was like, oh, he's quite fantastic. I don't know if you noticed that moment.
But
I was a little surprised.
Yeah, it seemed a little out of character based on her other, like, she didn't even know what clubbing was. But then again, I mean, it could have been, what is, clubbing might have been. Oh, you mean dancing. So who knows? Right. It didn't take me out of the story per se, that little beat.
Oh, no.
But it did seem like a little like, huh.
Right.
one of those pause and kind of wonder moments.
God, don't we wish we had Dwayne McDuffie?
Oh
Don't
my
we
God.
wish we had Mr. Dwayne McDuffie, the most brilliant man, the most brilliant writer, producer.
Think about if we were to do an episode that where, we have Dwayne and Kevin as our guests. My gosh. But that's a story for another time, obviously. In another world, another reality,
Yes.
I'm sure it's happening.
Yeah.
Speaking of Batman too, I love that he's, there in tuxedo. He is obviously there to keep an eye on what's going on with the thefts from Star Labs and kind of using his Playboy role for that purpose. But I love the episode where he captures the one goon during the theft at the lab. And
Yes.
the goon says something in Kazian like, even if I did tell you, you wouldn't understand it anyway. And he leans in and says, actually, I do. And you will. And he had that lean in where you see the focus on the man's goggles as Batman kind of leans in and they play that Batman animated series theme music. I'm like, that was perfect.
I just got chills. I just got chills because I know, as you being the fan you are, that I love that those moments, and how meaningful those moments are. To me, whenever there's a wink to an audience, I just makes me so happy, as an audience member of, I love when something's thrown in that you're like, it just tickles you, and so that's so sweet that moment resonated for you.
Yeah, they did.
I love that I love that he spoke the same language. I love that he's just, he's a man of the world, Batman.
Yeah.
And yeah.
It was basically, like I said, this was your and Bat's episode for the entire first portion.
Yes.
The first half is just the two of you, and the League's not even called in until Wonder Woman's been captured and she's held in this jail cell.
Right.
I don't know if I can get her out on my own when he puts the call into the Watchtower, and then Flash and GL and Martian Manhunter show up. But I did like that kind of focus on just the two of you, much like we had with Brave and the Bold, where the focus was just Flash and Green Lantern mainly. I kind of like those more intimate episodes.
No, for sure. And there's a sweetness to that, and you get to know the characters and their dynamic. I I don't know if when you see her tied up in the jail cell, right, and being held, there was a part of me that's like, really? I mean, I couldn't believe she couldn't break out of that. It just didn't seem like that was strong enough to hold her. What is it, just me and my bias, or did you feel that way?
I was kind of wondering, because when they first show you, they show you from kind of the waist up when Princess Audrey comes in to speak with you.
Yes.
But then they pan back and like, her feet are on the floor. She's got leverage. Right. She can either push back through the wall, or but I was like, all right, well, I could see it if your feet were bound by the same energy bands or whatever. I'm like, okay. But that did seem kind of a, she can't get out of there, really?
Okay, so that could be a new segment in our show, in our podcast, like the moments that we say, because one of them for me was when she noticed the men, like, and she did that, so, and also that she couldn't get out of that containment. Like, that didn't seem to be able to, I was shocked that could contain Wonder Woman. I mean, she's this glorious superhero, and she's being held by these
finger cuffs.
Handcuffs.
It's like, oh no, she can't get out. That was Houdini's.
Right.
That was Houdini's downfall too. The finger cuff. He couldn't break out of those, and he starved.
Okay, so there you go. Okay, so there you go. So anyway, I that jumped out at me. What did you think of that montage with the wedding and Wonder Woman in the forest and the Godfather-esque? It was Godfather. Yeah. It was the Godfather. It was, and they've done this several times now. They did this with World War II with the Nazis, and they have that wonderful montage. I loved that montage of the wedding, and then the music cues were just brilliant and cinematic. That's it, right? It's just cinematic. You're right.
Yeah, the whole thing with obviously it's all we hear while you and Batman and his Batplane are engaged in aerial combat and ground combat. All we hear are the wedding music and the minister giving the vows to them both. And it was kind of like, wow, that's so, I mean, just like amazing because you're not hearing the gunfire, the clatter of you taking an entire tree and throwing it at soldiers and everything else that was happening. It was really well done. Again, hat tip to all the production crew, Dan Reba, who directed this, Dwayne McDuffie, who wrote this, and all the people who did the artwork and storyboards. That was a well done scene.
Wow. And, like in The Godfather, during when, Michael and Kay are at the communion, and not the communion, the baptism. And I don't know that you hear the gunshots and things like that. You see them, it's just so brilliantly done where you're hearing the prayers in the church, but not the action of the murders. And it reminded me of this scene completely. So, hats off. We could always ask Dan Reba that question.
We should ask Dan Reba.
Yeah, we should.
Maybe we will. Maybe we will. He's hard to get a hold of, though.
Stay tuned, folks. Yeah. And, can we talk a little bit about King Gustav? Because I would have loved to have had a scene with King Gustav. I would have loved to have had some more screen time with him, or any screen time with him.
Yeah, and for the listeners, just a little bit of backstory here. Alfred Molina voiced King Gustav. Now, we did try to get Alfred Molina on the show as well. Susan is his next door neighbor, but he has an electrified perimeter fence, and he's got a moat with alligators swimming. So Susan tried, but once the alligators started snapping at her, she just backed off. So,
well, there's only so much I can do.
Right.
I mean, alligators are alligators.
Right.
I mean, I tried. Getting
with the electrified fence, that was impressive on its own. But
that was thanks. Yeah, that was tough. And I love Alfred Molina. I have told the story over and over where we were sitting next to each other in the session, and he just looked at me at one point and said, "I have no idea what I'm doing." And, I just thought, wow, this man is such a brilliant actor. And here he is, so out of his element, doing animation for the first time. And he was so good, and he was so lovable as the king. And I wish he hadn't gone so quickly, because I loved the character and the sweetness of the character, and the father-daughter relationship was sweet. And that piece of it was very touching to me. Mm-hmm. And we had Phil Morrison. His Vandal Savage is as brilliant as it gets. I mean, the character scares me. He's ruthless, and Phil does it in a very quiet way. And I think he's brilliant. This character is so well structured.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
I do. And I would have loved to have him on for this one, but I feel like in the timeline of things, we just had him on, and I kind of want to save him for another episode down the road, which is one of the reasons we didn't reach out to him for this particular episode, because obviously he would have done it. He seemed like he had a great time with us on the last one. We just didn't reach out because, there's another episode down the road we're going to try to have him on for him. We just had him.
Right. So. And again, as lovely as actors and writers and producers and the musicians, the composers are, we also don't want to take advantage of their generosity and then go to that well too often. And then all of a sudden they're seeing our phone number come up on their cell phone, and they're like, oh no, not again. So we want to just, we'll have Phil back, but not for this one. Right. I mean, this is just me. This is me flying solo like I do in the episode.
Right. Exactly. And
if I may.
And I did like that we got the full, because we had Vandal Savage in the Savage Time, the 3-parter that ended season 1. But this, we got in the origin story of why he is so long-lived, and it was comic accurate. I do love the fact that they, it's Dwayne McDuffie, so that doesn't surprise me that it was a comic accurate origin with the meteor and everything like that. And I absolutely loved him going into the backstory and telling people why he is over, 25,000 years old, and he posing as his grandfather for this particular episode. But it was really well written and really well done. And again, no surprise, it's Dwayne McDuffie.
And I have to tell you, in my notes, when they went into the flashback, because there were so many episodes where you would get the flashback, where you would get the person telling the story. And I dig it so much. I mean, I have a little flashback and then a heart on my notepad because I loved it. And it really was great getting the backstory to that character, as you said. So well done, Mr. McDuffie. That was so, so good. So, so good.
Now, Susan, I know this is your first time as a guest, but what we do is we take questions from social media. So is that okay with you to take a couple of questions?
Let me think. Yes.
Okay, great. I appreciate your bearing with us on this. Our first one comes to us from @TheRealShuban on Twitter. I loved how Vandal Savage arc played out. Did they write the chemistry you and the dearly departed Kevin Conroy have, or was that something that they always had in mind? Do you remember, just from being opposite of Kevin in so many of these great scenes with Wonder Bat, do you remember if that came about through it's like, boy, Susan and Kevin have a really great chemistry. Let's play on that, or was that kind of a through line?
I think it's the first one. I think that they heard the voices, and I think they liked the energy. I think that Dan Reba actually mentioned that at one point. But again, we'll go to the source and we'll ask Dan. He's probably so tired of us asking questions about Wonder Bat, but I can't get enough of these questions. So he'll have to suffer through us again. But yeah, I think he has mentioned that it was like, oh, that's an interesting thing. And I don't think it was written into like in the beginning in the Bible. I don't think that they thought we're going to put Wonder Woman and Batman together. I think it evolved, and I could be wrong, but I don't think I am.
Okay, good to know. Thank you for that question. We have @Brian P. Brewster on Twitter. Says, I would love to have you on my fledgling YouTube channel, Sheehan is Dead Comics, to talk about how much this show, Justice League, means to us. So I'm assuming he's talking about you, Susan. So I don't think he means me. It's like, who's this rando guy talking? But yeah, we want Wonder Woman on the show, obviously, to talk about how, but I mean, it is such a meaningful show. And here we are, we're talking about the writing and the directing and the voice acting and all the great people who are attached. But this show just resonates generation after generation. The show's been, here we are kind of joking about how it came out in 2001. You and I are still talking about it. This is a very popular podcast just because people love the show so much and people are still watching the show and it's so beloved.
It is. And thank the writers and thank the directors and the animators and the composers and the actors. But how do you have a show like this without a Bruce Timm, without an Andrea Romano, without a Dwayne McDuffie, Stan Berkowitz, Dan Reba, and a Kevin Conroy, to lead us all. And, that whole, you put all those ingredients together, you're going to get something really special and something that will last. And that's what we've got here. It's a classic. I'm reminded we just lost Bob Newhart. Yeah. And you saw all the sweet posts from the Newhart show. And, he did several shows, but the original was Suzanne Plachette. And, those classics, they never dim. They always entertain. They feel like comfort food at this point. They're especially in crazy times. It's just so meaningful to have these shows that are our touchstone, if you will. And I think Justice League is that for so many people. And, a lot of people tell me they met these characters through the show.
Yeah.
So people didn't know these characters before they watched the show. And then, or they may have known them a little bit, like maybe they knew Wonder Woman, but not really well. And so, I think it's a love affair, quite frankly, with the audience and the show. And I'm here for it because it's a love affair for me as well. And for all of us, the cast, the people who are listening to us now know how much the cast loves and appreciates and has so much gratitude for the show. So I think we're on the same page, don't you think?
I think so. I think so. I need to apologize to you. Normally, I'm here with my co-host and she keeps me on task. I didn't do this in our intro. I want to mention, as we mentioned, all the great voice people who we have. This episode particular, Maid of Honor, we have Dory Barton, who we mentioned as Princess Audrey.
Yeah.
Phil Morris, we mentioned, as Vandal Savage. Alfred Molina, who we mentioned, was King Gustav. But we also have Larry Drake as the voice of Colonel Vox. We have Dan Castellaneta, come on, as the minister who's performing the wedding. Jennifer Hale, our friend Jennifer Hale comes in. She's the chambermaid. But again, it's just these great little, oh my gosh, you got Dan Castellaneta. He was in Justice League. It's just so cool to see all the different voice people come through and work on this show.
Yeah, I think everyone said yes. You know, I'd be hard pressed to find somebody who said, yeah, I'm going to pass on that opportunity. You know, whether they wanted, as actors, wanted to do something their kids could watch or had never done it like Alfred before, or they knew that a show like this with Bruce and Andrea and Dan and people like that of that caliber, Dwayne, they knew it was going to be a class act and they knew it was going to be quality. And, you know, whether it's animation or live action, if it's quality, you say yes, you know, as an actor. So I don't think many people, if any, said no to the invitation.
And talking about doing something for your kids, before we went on air, you were telling a really cute story about this one when your nieces come over. This would be an episode you put on for them. Every time,
you know, Auntie Susie, can we watch Maid of Honor? You know, and friends of mine, their children would come over and it was always Maid of Honor. Always. That was always their choice. And I love it. I love the relationship between Audrey and Wonder Woman. I think people have all different interpretations of it. For me, it's, you know, it's an older sister, younger sister, and it's a mentoring relationship. And that speaks to me. People will see whatever they want to see in it. I don't personally see a romantic vibe, but I can see where people would in certain moments. But I thought it was a side to Diana we hadn't seen before, where she was this, even though she's naive, she was there to take care of this woman. And I liked the pushback Audrey gave her, and then coming around to recognize, oh, she was right. She was right about everything. So yeah, I mean, yes, I'm featured in it, but at the same time, as objective as I can be, I think it's just a dynamite episode.
And I can see where people would pick up. Maybe it was a little bit romantic, as the way after you catch her, after she jumps off the Eiffel Tower, she kind of pushes your hair back a little bit. So I can see where people could take that. I get it, but I even kind of thought about, I wonder if that was, but it's also just kind of an affectionate little thing that you might do to, you know, like you said, a sister. So I can see where people would have different takes on it, certainly.
Yeah. And there were moments like on the balcony, there's like a romantic, like there is a little bit of a sizzle there between them. And I don't know, you know, I didn't write the episode. I don't know what the, you know, certainly can't ask Dwayne, but we can ask Dan because I think Dan would know. So, you know, maybe we'll do that. Wink.
Maybe we will.
Wink.
Maybe we will.
Yes, maybe we will.
But this was, it was such a fun episode to go back and and I forget, some of these aren't, I wouldn't say ones that I've gone back and watched extensively. Like there's certain episodes, because I'm such a comic book fan, I want to see either the villains throw down with the heroes, or there's something particularly resonated about an episode with me. But this is I would say such a charming episode, and it's full of heart. There is a lot of action, especially in the second part of this, but certainly in the first part, when you're demolishing the Kaznian army almost single-handedly. You know, you're doing the air combat against the jets. You go down to the ground. You're taking on a tank. It's such a great episode on so many levels. And I keep coming back to, I have to attribute that to Dwayne McDuffie's brilliance as far as writing stuff. Obviously the vocal chemistry that you had with Kevin, and of course, Dan Reba directing the whole thing, because we just had him on my radio show last week. He's a storyboard artist. He draws these things out. He knows linearly. Is that a word?
I'm not sure, but let's pretend
it's a word now.
It is.
Where he wants the story to go, he can draw it out and also direct it in that aspect. So I think that's one of the things that's really, really is such a great episode.
It is. And I think that's such an important point, though, is the images that we see on screen, because as much as Kevin and I can bring the voices to it, the images, the way she looks at him, the way he looks at her, um, those moments mean so much, not only because of the voices, but because of what we're seeing on screen.
Yeah,
and
certainly.
we as the actors have nothing to do with that. That is all the storyboarding. That is all the directing. So, I love the expressions. I just love it. Yeah. Just, I'm just thinking back to some of those moments from the episode and the sweetness of them. It's just, yeah.
Earlier on, you mentioned the gifts, and one of my favorite gifts is in the second part when you and Bruce are, he just got you out of the I guess, unbreakable wrist cuffs that he had you on the wall. And you both had that little moment where you both kind of look at each other and then you jump into action. And that's one of my favorite gifts. And it's from that particular episode. It's just, again, to your point, it's such a good episode that they make most of the gifts come out of this one. It's the gift that keeps on giving.
Look at you. Hey-o. And it's so funny because she takes off and starts flying. And I'm like, where's Batman? Then you see him, he can't fly.
No.
Womp womp. What I did find, and I would love to ask Dan this, so let's note this down for when we see Dan again. But there was one of the shots that I thought was missing was during Vandal's press conference, where he reveals his evil plan. There wasn't a reaction shot from Audrey, where she's like, "Holy cow!
Yeah,
what is this? What is going on?" And I was a little surprised. I kept waiting for it, and it didn't come. And so I have a note about it because I was like, that's something to ask Dan Reba, don't you think? Yeah. Or maybe you don't know because he's talking.
Right.
And he's telling what his plan is, and you don't hear anything. You don't see her at all. It's as if she's not in the room, and she is in the room.
Right, because she walks in as he's about to give the address live, and we know, obviously, Flash, Green Lantern, and Martian Manhunter are seeing the broadcast.
Right.
So, that is an interesting question. I hadn't thought about it from that point, but that is very interesting. What was she doing? What was her reaction? And,
We know she was in a nightgown, and she was wearing slippers. Because I like how she's just wandering through with all these, big burly guys, and she's in her pajamas.
It's probably a crime. They'd be punishable by death to lay a finger on the queen. My goodness.
Well, as it should be.
Yeah.
So do we have any more questions?
Yes.
Because I don't think we gave people a lot of notice, unfortunately.
No, that's on me. Sorry about that. I should have put this out ahead of time that we were doing this. But we do have another question. Yes, from this one comes from Instagram. From the JL Club, Justice League Club. They want to know, does anyone know when exactly was the moment Diana found out about the Dark Knight's true identity? Because obviously she isn't, if she does know, she's not letting on that she knows Bruce is Batman when they're dancing. I think if I remember correctly, it was the episode later on in the season called Hearts and Minds where they're being chased by the A Better World, where they're being chased by the Justice, the evil Justice League, and they're being hunted and they're outlawed. And Batman has that moment where they should we know each other's secret identities? And Batman just goes, Wally West, Bruce Wayne, or Clark Kent, and then he pulls his own cowl off and says Bruce Wayne. Right.
So do you think, so that technically is the first time that I think he's revealed to be, that she knows who he is. But it just, I don't so when you're watching this and they're dancing, do you feel like he knows who she is? You don't feel that she has any inkling at all?
I don't think so, because it wasn't like, what are you doing here? It's like, oh, what are you doing in town? Just like she's chatting up someone she just met. So based on the dialogue, I did not get that impression.
Okay. Then why at the end does she say, we have to finish our dance?
I think that was I think she figured it out at that point. Something must have happened along the way that she picked up on the cue. She realized, oh, hold on. Because she's a smart person. She probably figured out, wait, Bruce Wayne is in Paris and Batman just happens to be in Paris. He was keeping tracks. He knows. And so I think that may have been part of what clued her in. So it might be one of those things where she realizes it along the way in this episode. That's my interpretation. We might have to ask Dan Reba. Maybe he'll know.
Right. Because don't you think by the end of the episode, she absolutely knows.
Yes. That line.
Yeah. Right. Like, and he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And she's like, okay.
Yeah.
If you want to play it that way. Yeah. Okay. Right.
Yeah.
At the end of the episode, she absolutely knows it's him.
And I think he may have been taken aback by that's what he's like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
I kind of, took hit. He's like, how would she, but like we said, she's a smart cookie. She probably figured it out throughout this episode. Yeah.
And again, that's what makes that dynamic so special is that, they have each other's number.
Yeah.
And I love that.
So I thank our guest, Susan Eisenberg, for being on the show. It was great to have you. Hopefully we can have you back on. Hopefully you enjoyed this and we can have you back on at some point.
James, thank you so much. It really was. I loved being here with you. And you're very good at what you do.
Stop.
Yeah, you're really a good host. And I will come back. Absolutely. I will. Thank you.
Fantastic. But it was nice to have this different dynamic because you're on and I'm assuming when you're hosting with me, you view the episode slightly differently than you would as you're kind of like, oh, I'm going to be questioned about this one. Was it a different viewing experience for you?
It was a little. It was actually more relaxed because I didn't. I mean, yes, I'd have to answer questions, but I didn't have to come up with questions. So that was easier. But I think our relationship, yours and mine, started with interviews because that's how we engaged, right?
Yeah, you were the first Justice League member I had on my radio show when I first launched it. My very first year, I think you were like on my 8th episode, and here I am now on 420 something. And my 8th episode, I reached out via your website, which is a really cool website, and SusanEisenbergVoice.com. And you said, I'd love to do this show. And then Kevin was my second guest. So I already had the Wonder Bat thing going for me. Look at that.
And, honestly, had you not been as good as you are at what you do and so, as professional as you are, I wouldn't have, been a guest 12 times later and then become a co-host on your radio show.
Yes.
And on this show.
On this show too.
No, because I'm a fan. I'm a fan.
I've been really,
so anyway, so here we are. We've come full circle.
Yeah. And we've finished another episode, Maid of Honor, 16th story overall in the run of the show, episodes 33 and 34 overall, and episodes 7 and 8 in season 2. As we mentioned earlier, it debuted October 18th, 2003. We've already mentioned everybody, but just to repeat, written by the great Dwayne McDuffie. Elma Fudd directed. Written by the great Dwayne McDuffie, and of course directed by our friend, the fabulously brilliant Dan Reba. This was great to revisit the episode, as my co-host is fond of saying.
I know, and I missed 4 opportunities to say it in this episode, and I'm kicking myself. But yeah, it was great to revisit it.
So thank you for being my guest on this particular episode. And if people want to find out more about you, Susan, website, social media handles, where cons are coming up soon?
Yeah, well, yeah. I would thank you. Susan Eisenberg 1 on all social media accounts and SusanEisenbergVoice.com, like you said. And I do have a con coming up. I will be in Dublin, Ireland, in August. At the 24th and 25th at the Dublin Comic-Con.
So jealous.
Yeah, Kevin used to go all the time.
Yes, he did. That was one of his favorite cons.
Yes, and he loved it. And, he was so great. He was such a natural storyteller. And he loved that con. He would tell us all these wonderful stories about it. And when he would tell us these stories, I thought, one day I'd love to go. I'd love to do Dublin. And here it is years later, and I was invited, and I will be there along with Maria Canals-Barrera and George Newbern and Andrea Romano. We will all be there together. So stay tuned for that. Yeah, it should be great. Really looking forward to that. So that's what I've got going on. What about you? Where can people find you, and what do you have coming up?
Well, I can be found. My website is geektomeradio.com, geektomeradio.com, where you can find all my past episodes. You can find out my movie reviews when I post them, things like that, what I've got going on. On social media, at Geek to Me Radio on Twitter and Instagram, facebook.com/Geek to Me Radio. And when we do our live radio show every Sunday night, 10 o'clock Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, we just had Kevin Altieri and Dan Reba join us last week or the week before to talk about the TV series Cops that they both worked on. If you're an 80s cartoon fan, that was a lot of fun. You can find all the back catalog. But if you subscribe to us on Facebook and YouTube, you'll get a notification every time we go live with video. So you can not only hear us here locally in St. Louis on KTRS 550 AM, you can also watch us from anywhere in the world on YouTube and Facebook and when we do our live shows. And I will be in Terrificon in Uncasville, Connecticut, August 16th, 17th, and 18th, I believe. One of the best Comic Cons in the entire country for my money. So if you are going to be in Terrificon at that same time, if you see me, please flag me down and say, hey, you need to really step up your game. And I'll take that criticism to heart, and I will try to do better.
I love that. I love that Comic-Con. I love that
so
one.
Good. Mitch does a great job.
It's so good. Yeah, Mitch does an amazing job. So, wow. So you've got stuff.
You've very busy.
Stuff going on.
Very busy.
Very, 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 very big. Well, thank you for making time in your busy schedule to interview me today for our podcast. And that's another one in the can, mister.
It is. Another one.
Look at us. Look at us. Another one.
Rolling through season 2. It's a crazy. This is episode 7 and 8 of season 2. We're like
I know.
blasting through it. We need to slow down, pump the brakes.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, sounds good. All right, so to be continued, right? The conversation will absolutely continue.